Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. Welcome back to those who've been on this journey with me. And if you're new to this channel, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. I'm burning some Palo Santo here. I feel like I cannot burn enough Palo Santo these days. Wow. So welcome to Monday. Welcome to the day of our harvest full moon. We are just days away from our equinox point, that balance point between the light and the dark and the equal amount of both that is presenting to us twice a year, right, with each equinox point. So here in the Northern Hemisphere, we are soon to move into the autumn season and the autumn equinox, and in the Southern Hemisphere into the spring. And so polarity is here. As part of our reality, it allows us to have free choice in every given moment. So, and that's how we create, right? We create from the dual aspects coming together, being synthesized, being catalyzed, as it were. So Monday. So thank you so much for your patience, number one. I'm usually here at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. It has been quite the weekend, hasn't it? And I will do my best to weave all of this together into some sort of narrative structure that is cohesive, because there's a lot that just happened, so much over the weekend. So on a personal note, I did have a family member pass away at the most auspicious time of the 17th, and I'll go into what that's all about. So it's been a very personal weekend. I've been trying to take some time to myself and to recharge and to really allow my feelings to have a full range of experience, and to allow the grieving process to come full front and center right now. So it's been interesting, to say the least. And didn't I say last week with that Sun trine Pluto, oh man, I knew something was going to happen close to me, and I suspected too that it was going to be something that many people may have been able to experience. And of course, death is the precursor to rebirth. It is the destruction and the death that comes before the new life and the metamorphosis. So there's nothing to fear here, and grief is a very natural process. And so it's okay to allow yourself to grieve in these processes, or as a process in these moments. And I sure am going to allow that process to unfold. So there will be no transmission on Thursday. That is the day of the service. So I won't be doing any transmission on Thursday, which, I think actually is the day after the equinox. So, and the day before they release the results publicly of the Maricopa County audit. So it's probably a good respite anyway for all of us to kind of take, a minute of a break here. So I look really pale. Do I seem pale to you? It's been quite a weekend, and we've gone through quite a bit. Like I said, I'm going to do my best to attempt to weave this narrative together. We have our intuitive reading that I'm going to share with you for today. Our harvest moon astrology I'm going to share in much more detail. We had the astrology report for the week already posted on YouTube and BitChute and Odysee, and you can check that out if you want to get a sense of maybe even a retrospective of how the weekend went and what to expect in the coming week, especially because we do have the equinox coming this week. This is such an important time frame. I can't overstate it, how important right now is. So it feels, there's a couple things that I really wanted to talk about, and I will take the time to talk about some certain things like, RH blood factor, and that's been coming up a lot, and that is directly related to the starseed mission, my friends. So it's important to understand what that's all about and what that means and how that influences all of us, really, and to understand, the mechanics of genetics and how this stuff is expressed. And we'll get into all that at some point. Today is not the day, though. A lot of people just woke up, like a lot. It's almost crowded, right? And today's full moon, our harvest full moon, it is obviously called that because it's the full moon closest to the equinox, but it also specifically the specifically the fact that the moon is going to be in Pisces whenever we have this harvest full moon, because the sun is towards the end of Virgo, which is that point between Virgo and Libra where we really embrace what it means to harvest, right? To relinquish and to release and to surrender a part of ourselves for the bigger picture here. Because when we move into Libra, it is the scales of balance and justice, but it really is about the perfect form of relationship and what it takes in order to achieve that perfect form of relationship. Transfiguration is a big part of the Libra archetype, what it takes to apply what we've learned about ourselves and to a situation of relationship with other, and how we transfigure ourselves in that process to find the perfect form. Now, we'll get into the astrology, but there'll be aspects that I'm going to weave in as we go through the intuitive reading, because there's for as much as the harvest is so important in this time, it's really important to realize how easily we can be harvested for another's gain in this time frame. And a lot of people really woke up over the last couple of days. And it's certainly the result of a lot of different factors, of course. A natural progression, right? Nothing can stop what's coming. More light coming to the planet, right? The electromagnetic field weakening, allowing more solar activity to actually come directly to us. And there have been some interesting spikes in the last 12 hours of the Schumann resonance. And La Palma, right? On the Canary Islands, that was a big deal over the weekend too, that erupted. And if there's a bigger eruption and a massive quake that goes along with that, hi Angus, the potential for a tsunami towards the East Coast, which is really outside of the realm of anything that we are really prepared for on the East Coast, is so strong. But at this time, the release valve was opened with the eruption, and so far there isn't any indication that there's going to be a major quake associated with it. And so that's, I'm really, really pleased to hear that, because otherwise we would have really had to deal with something very significant here on the East Coast of the United States. And really I'm not sure how far south that type of activity would have made an impact, but I would imagine you're looking at a lot of the Atlantic coastline being impacted by something like that. So, but the Schumann has made some interesting spikes. For me, I was up at 3 a.m, just really disrupted sleep, and the solar weather is really calmed, right? We had some CME activity that hit us earlier, on the front end of the weekend, and it's really calmed down at this point. But you can see the Schumann is been making its spikes, just like I said, in the last 12 hours. So there's something happening here that is drawing our attention, and certainly the planet herself is the heartbeat's going faster. The field is strengthening and getting faster when it has these spikes. And so we are not separate from it. And there's something to be said for tectonic and seismic activity within the Earth that also brings the Schumann to respond this way, or certainly express itself this way. And the Schumann resonance is nothing more than the frequency of the electromagnetic field of the planet. And when it spikes, that means the oscillation of the wavelength is faster, right? And just like our heart is an electric pump and emits an electromagnetic frequency off of us, it's the same for the planet. So, one second here, guys. Just working with natural light today. So, a lot of people woke up over the weekend, okay? And certainly I had my own intuitive experiences. The moon in Pisces passed over Neptune last night, so the dream state was very active. And again, with the Schumann spiking, overnight for many of us, that has, interacted with each other, right? The moon meeting Neptune, a lot of times you're getting deeply into the Akashic field, into the morphogenetic field. You're tapping into the collective unconscious through your own subconscious mechanisms, the moon representing that. The cats have been going crazy. If you haven't noticed the animals, they are really active right now. And with the moon being full in Pisces, right, this is a culmination point. This is a big culmination point, and we'll move into Aries by the end of today. And so there is a lot of activity right now. And like I said, a lot of people woke up, like a lot. It's very crowded right now. It's crowded energetically in this space. That was made very clear to me overnight. Just all of a sudden, the star seeds that have been, and the light workers that have been kind of towing this line on their own for so long, all of a sudden we're like, whoa, where did all of these people come from? So you can see it as like a bunch of walk-ins perhaps, although I don't personally agree with that characterization, just because I think it's something different than what that is. But, you know, some people, that's how they are characterizing this event and these types of experiences as walk-ins. So whatever resonates with you, you're going to have to figure that out on your own. I have my own reasons for not agreeing with that designation, but it doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. It's going to come through the filter of everybody's own, you know, consciousness, how they explain these things. But it's important to realize that in the event of a lot of people waking up in a very immediate short amount of time is the potential for that awakening state in its vulnerability in a lot of ways to be harnessed for something other than the highest intention. And the full moon and the symbolism related to the full moon that is exact tonight, East Coast Standard Time, 8 p.m., is the idea that the root, we have to stay connected to the very root of who we are and the root of ourselves and what it means to be in this space of purified, devoted, disciplined, higher self, right? Because the potential here is that when we differentiate back into different seed points, as the full moon symbol represents the light through the prism, right? The light goes through the prism, and then we see the differentiation of one singular event or one singular beam of light actually has all these different color wavelengths, right? It represents different frequencies of light, and the visible spectrum is what we see, but there's obviously so much more to electromagnetic radiation that we don't see, but we pick up on in different ways, of course. Just because it's not visual with our eyes doesn't mean that we are not picking up on different wavelengths of light in some other way. So it's important to realize that in these moments, that when it does differentiate, right, when we all go back into, and the cycle turns over and we all go into our singular seed points of our individual subjective experience, that we are staying rooted to the very core of who we are and why we're here, because it's in these moments that people are in fact harvested for a gain that is not involved with the highest good of this planet and where we are going. And it's up to us that have been on this pathway for a long time. There's a responsibility that we have in this moment to be a light, right? To be a high vibrating resonance that attracts people in, because it's very easy to get caught up. And I can speak from experience, having gone through this in my life already. Those moments when you start really waking up are exactly the time when something comes in and is just like, ooh, I'm going to attach to you and harness you and try to direct your energy for my own purposes. This has happened I've had this experience before several times, but the most recent was about 2014, being groomed to walk a very different path and to be brought into the fold of something that was not of my highest good. Thankfully, I have such a calibrated navigational system at the highest level that no matter what I do, I seem to be, pushed back on track, even if it's really uncomfortable. And certainly it was uncomfortable, but there's a lot more people waking up. And that is also based on what we've been doing, right? There is literally a ring, right? And there is a channeling from Magenta Pixie that I really, about the equinox. It's not from her, it's from the 9, right? And so it's very powerful about this time and how important it is right now that we make sure that we are absolutely anchored into that diamond structure and the ring that we've created, right? Because it's not just about us, it's about everybody, and it's about the planet, and it's about generations to come. Like, this is something way more than our own bliss state or our own sense of well-being necessarily. This is something way beyond that. And it's important that if this is new to you and you're just like, whoa, you feel like that you just showed up, that you make sure that you are staying rooted and anchored into the very core of who you are, because the divisiveness will in fact get worse. And that's not news, right? We've been talking about this on this channel for a long time, right? It's just going to ramp up and ramp up and ramp up, because that's all they have left is to keep trying to divide us. But in that moment, the thing that you can find as a blessing in that divisiveness is not so much the divisiveness and the, anchoring yourself in the divide, but realizing that every time there's polarity, it's an opportunity to exercise your free will. And that's something that came across my awareness over the weekend. And I was like, wow, that's pretty much it right there. That it's we live in a free will universe, and you don't get free will or free will choice without polarity. And so there's something to be said for that. And there's something that we can honor in that process. But the minute we attach to one side or the other, then we're just being siphoned, right? Just being siphoned. And you can see every narrative that shows itself as a polarity point is an opportunity to find the middle path, to find the apex, right? To find the creation point and the synthesis, the alchemical transmutation in that polarity, which is very much the Sagittarian energy. This is where K2 and the South Node, our past karma, is right now, right? And so there's a lot we can harness this. In fact, this was in some ways the boomerang effect. They keep trying to do this every time they create polarity or attempt to divide us. It's an opportunity to slingshot it back, but we have to do it consciously, and we have to be aware of that polarity and not fill it, feed into it, because there is definitely feeding that is happening, and a negative harvest that if we don't participate in it, then we are in fact strengthening that diamond core, strengthening what is that diamond ring. And I'll link to the channeling from the 9 in my social media if you haven't seen it already. It was really very, very powerful. So, and these days right now are incredibly important. And so if you have lost loved ones, this is what's bringing me comfort, at least. And this was somebody very close to our family. Like, this was like my mom's best friend and like a sibling. It was my dad's cousin, but they're like siblings, right? I grew up with these people. And this woman was somebody that I identified as a very close family member. And it's very painful to lose these people, but also knowing that it happened at the time frame that it did is that these people ascend into their next phase as guides, right? And they are fulfilling what they were here to do on a soul level, and we're all doing that, so we've got to do it consciously. So let's look at the reading here, because I want to show you again that there is so much potential here when there is differentiation, and in fact that is our opportunity for free will, and how we can value that, how we can find it as a blessing and bless it with our own energy, rather than falling into the trap of being divided by it. And it's very, it's very insidious because truth is twisted, and this is how the dark really gets you, is because it shows you the truth and then twists it around. This is why Scorpio in the 8th house is such a trial and requires that ego death, because it is through our ego consciousness that the truth gets twisted and we respond to it. And with the moon coming into Aries today, I mean, Aries is the 1st house. Aries is our subjective experience of us individually, and it is where our ego is really seated. Like seated with a, like a seat, and then the seed point, right? It begins here, and it has to begin here. But this is exactly the area too where the truth gets twisted, and we have to be very mindful of this. And we can't be complacent right now. This is the last place where we want to be complacent. So let's start looking at this, shall we? I'm going to move over to the chat. There we go. I just want to make sure that the stream is going well. All right, guys. So first, here's our Wheel of Fortune. Man, we've been talking about this forever. Number 10, right? This is like the perfection number, the wheel actually coming back around to the beginning and the end. The Wheel of Fortune is the master of karma, right? It is destiny and destination. We don't control the spin of the wheel, but we have control over ourselves in the spinning of the wheel, right? Everything is in motion, always. There's no real stagnation in this universe. And when you come to a still point, it's because you're the hub of the wheel, right? And so there's really still no stagnation. It's just you at the center point, or that 0 point at the center is where you find your balance, but everything is moving all around us constantly. And so fate is a big part of this, the Wheel of Fortune. And fate is something you have to understand that it is the result of what we've already done. It's a cause and effect relationship. It is really just basic classical physics in terms of cause and effect. Fate is the result of what we've already done. Okay. And so in every single choice moment, right? Every single choice point is an opportunity to impact our fate, right? Because we may not have control over the turning of this wheel, right? But we have control over how we respond to that. And every time we respond to that in a conscious way with the highest intention and the highest action, right, behind it, then we have actual control over our fate. But if we are complacent, if we are unconscious, if we are allowing our subconscious programming that has been forced on us from the outside or somebody else's agenda to be the one be what dictates how eventually our thoughts and ideas and our actions come to the surface, then we still are subject to our fate. It's the same for everybody. So what this is showing us here is that our causal factor in this horizontal axis of our conscious awareness, right, in terms of the cause and effect relationship, cause and effect, this is showing that there was a wheel that turned, right, over the weekend, specifically over the weekend. The way we deal with the results is which, like I said, is what determines our fate in every single choice point, which is really about finding the middle way, finding the apex, the eye of the needle, right, this very narrow pathway, and this does, Jupiter rules this card. Jupiter is the planet. Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius. Jupiter is the defender of the collective value system. So it is the higher mind of Sagittarius in the 9th house that this really represents. So it's our ability to realize facts, right, which is Gemini in the 3rd house. It's opposition. And I'll show this to you on the chart. I mean, we're looking literally at the astrological wheel right now turning. Here is all of our houses, 12 houses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, I think there's actually 10 spokes in here. So, because it is the number 10. So we are looking at the ability to realize facts and understand them. Understanding is the synthesis of polarity, right? When you understand both sides, you bring them together, you catalyze the reaction, you understand it, and you create something new. And every time there is a polarity, it is our opportunity to not pick a side, but to choose to synthesize, to catalyze, to transmute that into a new thing. Now, the wheel of fortune is the fact that we create the circumstances of our own fate in that choice point at every moment. So if we are, in fact, the hub of this wheel as it's turning, we're always in a position to be at the core of who we are, at the 0 point that is outside of this, or not even outside of it. I mean, I would say within it, right? It is absolutely within it. In some ways, it is the center of the toroidal field that is spinning, right? And so you have to have input from above, input from below, meeting at the heart space, which then emits the toroidal field, which is our aura, which is our Merkaba. So something has turned. Absolutely something has turned. And it's not, it's the result of a lot of the anchoring that the Starseed and Lightworker community and the Truth Teller community, the Patriots, right? All of us have been doing this work for a long time, however you want to designate yourself. We've been doing this work of anchoring this and doing our own work, right? And modeling that in some ways. And just the resonance of that is going to reverberate out, and something very massive. I wouldn't even say it shifted. The wheel came all the way around, and that's that diamond ring that the 9 talked about. And I thought that was just a beautiful characterization. And I had my own vision, right? My own connection to what this meant in my dream state over the weekend. And so it's so refreshing and validating to have all of these different sources having their own way of expressing it come together. So, but the wheel definitely turned, okay? And so, again, it's all about that choice point in every single moment. Now, what we find here, this is so beautiful. Love, the 2 of Cups. Now, the thing about this card is to really remember here and to really grok, right? To really understand is that it's the necessity of differentiation and separation that allows our opportunity to come back together. We don't come back together without the differentiation. And so with this full moon that's exact tonight, our harvest full moon in Pisces, it is that stage. It is that last moment where the singular beam of light goes through the prism, and you see how everybody's differentiated back into their own seed point, right? And it's just like the hidden seed in the pomegranate. You can think about it that way. When the fruit is surrendered, right? When the fruit is open, when it leaves the plant and finds itself being the seeds being scattered all over the place for the next cycle, that is where the moon is for this full moon. But it requires that we are in our own minds, in our own resonance, right? In our devotion and our discipline on this path of service to others, that we stay connected to the natural process, to natural law in this process, instead of artificially trying to make any kind of impact, right? And this is something this is what we're going through on a mass scale right now, is whether or not we're organically going to go through this process or attempt to go through it inorganically. And when I say inorganic, I mean minerals and crystals are technically inorganic. I'm talking more about the transhumanist thing, right? If that's going to be the medium for our next level of evolution. And that's the choice point again. And there's so many ways that this is coming up, but this is love. This is spirit, right? The cups are spirit. Look at, they're overflowing. It's so beautiful. You have the lotus flower at the top here. You have the Pisces fish that are intertwined, and also releasing the spirit, and it's just this beautiful energy. So, but we need a counterpart. There needs to be differentiation in order to even feel the opportunity for unification. So again, polarization allows for free will, and that is the essence of this third dimensional reality, is the polarization. So there is unity in our differences. This is what this represents. This is beautiful. You can see it all around you that people are coming back together, that people who had been on other sides staunchly are now starting to see each other's perspectives, and it's from a place of open heart and love and a sense of faith and loyalty, right? That Venus in Cancer, right? Venus being sensitive to the world around her, Cancer being the root system that stabilizes us to who we are and allows for this intertwining in some way. So there's harmony, there's friendship, there's pleasure, right? Unity in difference. We can still be different because that is the nature of the universe, that we're not clones of each other. There's always a new cycle that is created in, just like in a really good example of this is actually in meiosis and natural procreation. I think I already talked about this, that in the process of natural procreation, the sex cells, they divide and you get one set of chromosomes from one parent in one sex cell, right? And the other sex cell has another set of chromosomes from another parent. When they come together and synthesize, and there is a catalyzed reaction, they come together and they blend to create a new person that's unique, with a unique signature, a unique resonance, unique genetic things. And that's why we're all different. We're not just clones of each other. And there's something very valuable, but you don't get this without the polarization. And so in some ways, this is another opportunity to honor and bless that polarity, not because we're picking sides. And some people are picking sides, and really drastic sides, right? And you have to be careful that you're not falling into the same trap in the process of trying to advocate for yourself or your own sovereignty, because you don't want to other people in this type of way. But I don't feel that. I feel what's happened is that we, at the heart here, we are in fact finding unity in our differences, that we are capable of loving each other even if we've been differentiated into our own unique subjective experience, because that's just how life goes. All right, so where we find ourselves drawing our power from, right? So we have our horizon of consciousness, our cause and effect relationship, and then we have our vertical axis of our own power, right? This is the as above, so below axis that allows for the toroidal field around us, and in some ways actually creates this cause and effect relationship that we already just acknowledged as fate. Up in the air, right? So number 18, if you put this together in 1 + 8 is 9, right? This is, again, a culmination. There is trust that needs to be embraced here at the most subconscious rooted level. There's a lot of things we still don't know, and there's a reason we don't know them. If we knew everything now, we wouldn't allow ourselves the opportunity to learn anything about ourselves as we go along our evolution. So it's important to at the base level here, let go of all the urgency. Give the situation up to God and your higher self and your intuition and your innate, because that's going to be where you really get the direction that you need. Somebody had made a comment on a Telegram chat about what, this possible storm coming in from this volcano, and it was kind of earlier before it was really disclosed that this volcano was going to erupt, and so there was a dropping of a little nugget here of what could happen, and somebody was just like, I can't. Can you tell me what's going to happen? Like, I can't move my mom. I can't do this. Like, this is really, I feel, basically they were reinforcing their own sense of powerlessness by not knowing what was going to happen. And my answer to that person was, in that situation, it was just like, you need to trust that you're exactly where you need to be. and that God had put you there for that reason. And if it's time to move, your gut's going to tell you, and you have to listen to that. Your innate, your gut. So there's some things that we're not meant to know necessarily, because again, like if we knew it all, then we wouldn't walk the pathway of our incarnation in material form and evolve that way, because this whole process is about us coming to recognize and embody our higher self within a third dimensional reality, right? This is the unification. And we don't get there without the bifurcation that we've all been experiencing between these two dimensional aspects. And many of us has been straddling this, and it's been exhausting, it's been difficult, and we have learned a lot about ourselves and about this process because of it. Now, like I said, trust is the only way. And so this is where we can really draw our power up from, is the trust, right? Things are up in the air, and there's a lot of things that are going to come back down to earth very soon. But give it up to God, because we can't know everything, and we have to trust the divine plan, right? The divine timing is the only timing. And if astrology hasn't, given you that indication, I don't know what else will, because these are cosmic cycles that are in place that we don't change. We only have control over our own responses to these massive cycles. And it's just not the astrology of our solar system. It's where the solar system is moving through the galaxy, and how the galaxy is its own toroidal field, and how that impacts us as well. And the ancients knew that because they were tracking all of these things. And so again, we're not going to know everything, and we can really draw our power from embracing this, that it's up in the air, that not everything's settled, right? Because there is one timeline that Earth is heading towards, right? We are at the event horizon, but we don't know how that's going to actually manifest in our experience. And so letting it go and the urgency around it is where we can really draw our power from. And as it moves up through our heart, right, and that love that we feel, that potential of love in our differentiation, here's our balance, 7 of forces. I mean, literally the scales of balance of Libra right here. So this has come up quite a bit over the last weeks in various positions, and it's not going away. Look, here's that wheel again. Oh, that's fascinating. And actually, this very much looks like Pisces. If you look at the sign, the zodiacal sign of Pisces, it looks like Pisces, but with the wheel around it at this chair. Here's our scales. There are a bunch of contracts. The door is open, right? And the light is shooting in, or I wouldn't say shooting, that's not the right word. The light is beaming in, right? It is coming in. It's radiating from this open door, okay? So balance. And remember, the 7 is that moment where it all seems to fall apart, and we have to, again, trust. So there can be divine intervention. Be patient. Pay attention to the details, okay? Justice is at hand, but it's an energetic process, and energetic doesn't manifest right away. Not here, at least. I mean, it will be that way, I'm sure, at some point, and it's getting more and more like that. But reciprocity is energetic. So if it doesn't, we don't want it to come from force. We don't want it to come from revenge. We don't want it to come from a sense of urgency, because then you make mistakes, right? Be aware of your thoughts. Be aware of your actions. Be aware of your resonance at the seat of your creative potential, which is that sacral chakra, the base of your spine, right? We don't want our kundalini to be utilized and harvested for somebody else's agenda. And every time there's a polarity that is created, it's being created for that reason, to harness. And the boomerang effect is the fact that every time it happens, we get to have the opportunity to be like, oh, there's another catalyzed reaction. Oh, there's another opportunity for transmutation. Oh, there's another opportunity to bless that polarity and synthesize and create something new. It's beautiful. And there is a protective mechanism around us right now that is allowing for, it's like a portal in some ways. It's allowing for this to happen in a way right now, at least. It's probably not going to necessarily stay this powerful after the equinox. And this is why it's really important that right now you're aware of it, so that you don't get pulled in to one side or the other. You want to balance this, balance it. This is the top of the reading where we release the energy and where we make our contribution, where our conscious awareness is, right? What's going on at the top of our awareness is what this card represents. So balance. Be patient, pay attention to the details. Don't get pulled into the emotional drama of it, right? Not to say that things aren't as they seem either. Give it time to really feel into it and make your decisions based on your gut and nothing else. Because there is a very distinct advantage to creating division in every corner you can imagine. So be aware of that. Now, this is what I think is very interesting. This can go a couple ways here. This Prince of Wands. It's taunting me. Now, the Prince of Wands, when we have these court cards, the prince, the princess, the king, the queen, or the knight and the queen, different decks have a king and the page, but they represent us in our actual personality form, right? A lot of this is all archetypal of experience, but when we get these court cards, they really do represent how we are moving through this energy, how we are embodying this particular energy. So the prince is the air, right? It's about the mind and the activity of the intellect and motion, and definitely motion. You can see it in this card. And then the wands are the fire, obviously. So you also have the lion here pulling the chariot. I mean, fire, 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 fire. This is the storm of the mind right here. Hot storm filled with action. Okay, and this is us, right, embodying this in some way, or this is a person that is in our immediate reality, or somebody that is a representative out there in the global reality. Okay, it's a person. Now, so that it's impulsive. It's a hot storm filled with action. You can see it's just emanating off of this card, right? And he's got this huge headdress that's made of fire. You can even see like a cat at the top here, this cat head, the lion pulling the chariot, fire, fire, fire. He's got some sort of symbolism right over the crest, the bird on the staff. So you see these two very masculine energies together of fire and air together. Now the prince is young, right? So keep that in mind as well. Impulsive, immature, not grounded at all, and not reflective or empathic with any water. Okay, now when it's reversed, there's a couple ways this can go, considering all of these other things together. Number one, there's a lot of restlessness and impatience and destructiveness and cruelty and intolerance that comes when this card is reversed, right? It's all of those impulsive, hot energies, but in a very inverted way. Very inverted. Now we have here this up in the air that is bringing us to draw our power of ourself, our personal power, from a place of patience and letting go of urgency and trusting. Now, this is, and with the wheel turning, right, and this centerpiece of just love and harmony and differentiation and balance, right, balance of our force. This is going to bring this out in other people, right? It's not necessarily, this is not necessarily going to bring this out in us. It's going to bring it out in other people, okay? So be ready for this, okay? This may be expressed outside of us, like I said, in other people, in response to our love and our harmony and differentiation, our unity and different, that's right at the heart of us, right? We're feeling it. We're just completely engaged in it. And as we're going to see with the guidance around here, that being able to reunite with people, to come back together, even if you don't agree on everything, is so important right now for this balance. This is going to bring this destruction and this impatience and this restlessness. It's going to come out really strongly. Okay. Remember that the potential of the sun at this new moon is about potentially recreating the same oppressive systems over again if we are not balanced and rooted into something very, very deep, right? That is the potential for this full moon. And it's going to show us what we need to let go of. And it's certainly going to show us the culmination of everything that we have worked on during this Virgo season within ourselves, all of the routines and the habits and the work we've done on ourselves, and getting into the nitty gritty of who we are and really utilizing that to discipline ourselves, to purify ourselves, to be of service, right? That's the Virgo energy. That is really the Christ energy of Virgo, right? To be of service. It's the incarnation and embodiment of the purification of our soul in a human form. So we've learned so much, and we've done so much work, and this will inevitably provide the counterbalance, right? It's going to bring this out. It's going to bring it out outside of us in other people, potentially. We don't want to create the same oppressive systems that we're trying to, that we're part of dismantling right now, especially with Pluto where it's at in Capricorn. We don't want to cover it, superficially cover it back up and be like it's the same old shit. And I know I talked about this in the astrology report from Friday, because that was everything about this. And so now the wheel has turned, and there are people waking up all over the place, and they're like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And the love, right? The potential for love is so strong, but be warned. What it can possibly do is bring these restless energies up from other people, and maybe even within us. It just depends on where we find ourselves, because if you are not satisfied, if you're restless, if you're impatient, and you don't trust what's happening, you can see how this can easily get way out of hand, okay? And what happens when you blow air onto a fire, right? It rages, right? That's why you blow on a fire to get it going. That's why you have the bellows. So just be mindful of this, okay? Now, some good guidance here along the way for this whole process. Number one, the Four of Scrolls is our karmic trench. Now, it's very easy to get caught in that same pattern of self-defeating behavior and action that we keep digging into from lifetime after lifetime, right? And it's important that we alter our resonance to alter our thoughts and patterns. It's not so much changing our thoughts and patterns up here. We want to alter our actual resonance at a very subconscious level in order to then cascade up to our thought process. So it's not about just thinking it. It's about your thoughts are going to change and your behaviors are going to change when your resonance changes, when your energy changes. And that comes from deep work, right? And Vesta, asteroid Vesta, the goddess of the hearth flame, that the spark of creation and the spark of sustainment that's within all of us, at the center of us. She just moved into she's moving into Scorpio today. So that's something to consider, is that we're about to get a real direct look at the power of that, for better or for worse, right? So it comes from the subconscious, right? That is where the Scorpio realm in the 8th house truly represents, is going into the subconscious and working on your energy and your resonance. And that will, again, cascade up. It takes time. It takes time and effort, and this Virgo season was the time to be doing it. So if you haven't been doing it, or people around you haven't been doing it, and there was a big wake up, so all of a sudden, right, there's a lot more people on this wavelength now than there was even like 3 days ago. But if you're struggling with trusting this process, or you know people who are struggling with trusting this process, you can bring this to their awareness that it's this neural pathway that we all have. And again, the programming is deep. It's so deep because it comes from social media, it comes from TV, it comes from the mainstream news, it comes from advertising, it comes from all kinds of things that seem like truth that are really twisted around in order to in order to feed somebody else's agenda. But a lot of it is these neural pathways, and neuroplasticity is a real thing. We can in every moment choose, and it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight, but we're kind of running out of time here. So there's always room for redemption, always, 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 up to the last minute, right? And so if you know people who are struggling, or you're struggling, just know that it's important that we are realize that you're in this pattern of self-defeating thoughts and behaviors, and it's just going to take time to pull yourself back out of the trench, and every single moment is that moment to make that change. Okay, to redirect your attention, right, and to choose not so much to think about it differently, but to choose to really get into your own shadow and understand what is there that maybe is not serving you anymore. And that's a great thing to do on a full moon. That's exactly what we should be doing on a full, especially a harvest full moon, because we don't want to take all of that baggage into the next cycle, right? That's because the harvest is here. We don't want to take it with us. We don't want to take that into the next seed point. And so it's something to consider. The snow leopard as our animal guide, it's you're only going to find this in your own innate. And the only way to really access that is silence, solitude, right? I'm not saying you should push people away. We all have things that we have to do in our life, right? But this is about silence allows you to hear the guidance of God and your higher self. Silence allows you to get into your innate and into your gut and to really, really get into your own intuition, all right? There are lots of distractions and distortions, especially if you're a starseed and you know you're a starseed. Cellular technology, I hate to say it because we all love it, but it's a big problem, right? Take time away, turn your phone off, put it on airplane mode. This is for me too. I'm doing this now. I'm like really making a conscious effort, turning it off, putting it on airplane mode, right? Don't keep it on you on your physical body. Limit the amount of time that you're using it, right? Because that actually does have a very real impact on your resonance and distorts what you consider is your intuition and your innate. So taking that time away, going into prayer and meditation, not so you feel better, because meditation to silence and let the dust settle so that you can get clear and feel in your own body. That's the other thing. Like, you need to feel it in your body so that then you can start to shift that. If you don't know what shifting energy in your body feels like, how are you going to know how to change it, right? This is some of the work that I do with people with energy work. Just receiving it passively, like Reiki, for instance, will give your body the opportunity to feel what it's like when things are different energetically. So this is really bringing this up, right? Take the time out of your usual life, go into solitude, turn your phone off, turn off the internet. You don't need to be on social media all the time in order to, because that is reinforcing that sense of urgency. Let it go, right? It's only going to be through your trust in your higher self, your intuition, and God that's going to really give you the answers you're looking for. And it will also help you see, oh yeah, every time I'm triggered in this way, this is the thought process that cascades. So I want to work on the deeper triggers. And you can't do that without getting into your subconscious. It's not going to come through your conscious mind, okay? Because they don't program us through our conscious mind. It's all subconscious. Oh my Lord. Okay, so when it comes to that balance, right? Here's the gorilla. Take the time to listen compassionately to those you love, especially your family members, especially people you have been ostracized from, who have, maybe you've chosen to step away. And I know that there is a lot of that in the quote unquote spiritual community, whatever that even means anymore. That, if you're not resonating with people, you should just let them fall away from your life. And there's something to be said for that when people are certainly abusive towards you and are intentionally trying to hurt you or siphon from you, right? Vampires and such. And again, you have to know the difference between people who you love, and just because you're different doesn't mean that you don't love them and listen to them, and those who are actively working against your your well-being, right? There's definitely a difference, and it's important to know the difference. And in order to find balance, we really want to take the time to listen to people that maybe we disagree with, like really listen to them and not hold judgment, but compassion for them. People change all the time. And believe me, a lot of people just woke up. like just woke up in the last couple of days. And so even your own family members that you've been like banging your head against the wall for years, you know, especially in the last year or so, being like, wake up, right? You may find yourself, you may find that they're going to come to you and they're all of a sudden way more receptive, or they come to you and they're like, wow, I never thought about it this way. And you're like, oh, that's interesting. Instead of pushing them away, it's important that we take the time compassionately and to listen. And if you want to find that balance within you, you have to cultivate it. And again, that means not picking a side necessarily. And it feels really good to do that. It feels good to pick a side because we want to validate and fill our ego. And there's a lot of awful things that we don't want to align with, and we don't want to align with the people who are aligning with them. And I totally understand that. It's a sensitive thing, right? That's nuanced. And you have to and we're all going here together, whether you like it or not. And so, yes, you need to know the difference between people who are actively working against your health and safety and those who are just trying to figure it out as much as the rest of us, right? And this is about listening compassionately. Compassion doesn't mean you excuse people's behavior if they've been acting against natural law, right? It doesn't mean you excuse it. It means that you realize that we all suffer and that we all make mistakes, every single one of us. And so when you listen compassionately, you're listening to a person's story and how they got to where they are, right? And it's important that we do that. That's how we find love, and that's how we find unity and difference. Now, it's not going to be easy because here is our birth card reversed. It's a difficult labor. Difficult, right? Things are not happening at the pace we want. We may have a hard time finding this new purpose or this new thing. There may be a delay. Again, we have to be committed to the compassion and the balance, and it is a difficult birth. And it, like I said, there's a sense of urgency here that we need to, I would say, need to let go of, so that we can listen clearly to our higher self, our innate, and to the divine timing here, right? But this is, when the birth is difficult, it can be really scary, and it could certainly lead you to question if this is actually happening. And so, again, other people might be in this place right now that they're really struggling with things not happening, or difficulty finding their place, or really questioning this whole process. And it's, you know, up to us on some level to instill a sense of balance and within ourselves, and listen compassionately, and people will respond to that. I assure you, they will respond to your energy, not you necessarily like pushing an agenda, because all it's doing is like forcing the crowbar into the divide that already exists. And I know it's painful and it's difficult, and many people are really, you know, on some hand, people are really excited, and I feel that, and I also feel that we're going to see this, right? This inversion within people of this, you know, impatience and restlessness and cruelty, right? And destructive tendencies, they are going to come out. So be aware of that as it may come out in the people around you, and still be compassionate. You have control over your resonance. You don't have to be pulled into their experience just to listen to what's going on, right? And you don't have to completely shield yourself either. That's part of, we can't do that anymore, right? It's that had its place at one point. It did. And speaking as an empath, I mean, we all know what that means. We all know what that means. That had its purpose. We needed to know what boundaries were. That's a Cancerian thing. Boundaries and borders and security are important parts of determining who you are and who you are not. It's important that we don't let that go, but we also need to be semi-permeable and realize that if we take baggage with us into the next cycle, well, that is going to be part of us in the next cycle. And that's what karma is, right? It's just a cause and effect relationship. So let's start looking at some of the astrology for today, because our moon is going to be moving into Aries today. And of course, like I said, the moon was in a conjunction with, look at this right here, just this morning, just passed Neptune. So the dreamscape has been pretty vibrant. I'm checking in with the chat real quick here. It says that Barbara says that magenta pixie channeling was so on point, so life-changing and affirming of energetic immunity if we stay anchored in what we know. Totally. Absolutely. And you know what's just blowing my mind is the fact that I've been getting the download for like 2 years now about the diamond template. And I'm like, it's the diamond. And you can see how artificially they are trying to create it. And I'm just going to go out and say it certainly with the risk here of being booted, but you can see that they're artificially trying to create it through the graphene in certain inoculations, right? Because graphene and diamond are pretty much, they're nothing more than carbon put together, right? In different configurations, and they both have incredible capacity to hold a lot of energy, right? Diamond is one of the strongest substances we have, and it has a piezoelectric effect, which allows for energy and heat to move along its surface. Also, diamond is created from carbon being subjected to incredible amounts of heat and pressure. Now, graphene is just carbon as well, atomically thin carbon. It's what's necessary for quantum computing, right? Now, I'm not going to go too much into it right now. I've spent some time researching this subject on my own because I really wanted to understand what it was that was happening here. But that's the artificial means. And why would they be injecting everybody with it if they're trying to destroy us? Well, it's mostly a mass experiment to see how we're going to respond to it and who's going to survive the injection and who isn't, right? Because those are going to be people that are available for the next stage. But it is the consciousness of the diamond template and the quartz, right? Silicon dioxide and quartz crystal, it has the very same piezoelectric effect. It's just silicone instead of carbon. Energetic immunity, right? I've been talking about energetic hygiene before I even knew any of this shit was going to happen. So Barbara, I really appreciate that comment. And I am going to link that channeling on my social media so that people can, and it's very coded and it's dense, right? I had to listen to it like 2 or 3 times to get all the pieces out. And again, the boomerang effect is absolutely here with that. They tried to do that, and all they did was make people even more of an energetic booster for the service to others template, right? That's what they did. They tried to, and it backfired, right? And it will continue the counter and the thesis and antithesis action of Gemini, which is where Rahu and the North Node are, right? And if you don't understand any of these things, I know there's new people coming here to astrology. Just know that I explain it pretty much every single time, but don't worry too much about, not understanding the astrology aspect. It's a language. It's a very complex language that takes a long time to really understand how it all fits together. Just like if you immerse yourself in a foreign language, right? It takes time and immersion. But this is our, Rahu, or the North Node of the moon, is our soul's karmic trajectory. This is where we're being pulled, where our soul is pulling us in this direction in order to evolve. And it is distinctly Gemini. So the polarity is, and the thesis antithesis aspect is absolutely part of where we're going right now, right? And it's moving in its natural retrograde fashion, and we'll be moving into Taurus very soon with the Pleiadian revival. And I'll be talking about that soon enough. But the energetic immunity, absolutely. So affirming, and so it's not that you're pushing away the polarity. You accept that it's a choice point every time it's offered to you. And if you accept it as a choice point every time it's offered to you, rather than staunchly picking a side and being harvested for somebody else's agenda, then you are doing just fine. And there is a diamond ring, right? Diamond is created through pressure, and it's carbon. It's just carbon atoms. That's what we are, diamond. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. I want to get through the rest of this astrology for today so that we can understand the cycles that are presented to us on this beautiful harvest full moon day. So number 1, the moon was in conjunction with Neptune not that long ago, right? Let's just go back. Here it is. Just this morning, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And so the mandate coming down from the mountain, this is where Neptune and Pisces is, that degree, that's the symbol. What do we do with this peak experience of Pisces? And Neptune dissolves everything around it. It dissolves everything into this experience. There's no side of the pool, you know what I mean? There's no bottom of the ocean with Scorpio, for instance. It really is just formless, shapeless, infinite potential in Pisces. And Neptune is just like, yeah, I'm going to dissolve everything around it so that it's nothing but this experience, that you're just bobbing in it, right? What are we going to do with it? Well, the moon crossed this point and allowed us each subconsciously to connect into the collective unconscious in this moment, okay? What are we, how do we connect to this? What are we going to do with this peak experience? And like I said, a lot of people just woke up. A lot of them. They're just like, what? And they're like, oh, wait a minute. And with Neptune retrograde, the fog is clear. It's been clear. It's just now that people are directly connecting to it and being like, oh, I see now. And the trick is not to get pulled into the polarity. You know what I mean? That's the trick right now. And you have to have hacked your own shadow in order to do that. And so some people are going to need some help along the way. And many of us cannot get caught back into this cycle. Okay? It's really easy. I see it. It's happening constantly. And all kinds of different conversations that if it creates divisiveness, be mindful about where you're situating yourself in that conversation. Okay. So we have the moon meeting Neptune, incredible connection to the collective unconscious. Now the moon, Mercury is in conjunction with fixed star Spica. I talked a lot about this in the astrology report. I would recommend that you check that out so you can understand much more about what that represents. But this degree of Mercury, right, the realm of our mind, the realm of ideas, communication, our conceptualization of the world around us, right? Hermes is Mercury. It's our magician quality, right? Kind of tricksterish in its way, right? Mercury is able to, it rules Gemini, also rules Virgo, because Virgo is about analysis. And intuition. So Mercury is able to seamlessly move through the spectrum of thesis and antithesis, right? At faster than light. You know what I mean? Rides the light beam. That's what Mercury does. Swift. Mercury was Hermes was the only deity to be able to move in and out of the underworld without getting trapped there. Nobody else was able to do that except Mercury. There's something very special about this quality. So in conjunction with Spica, fixed star Spica, this is a Spica starseed activation. This is the development of a very special spiritual capacity, kind of like a third wing in some ways, that it's not quite made available to our consciousness yet. But I would say more so than if other aspects were here. There's an appearance of a new faculty, right? And it's our ability to develop for inner strengthening this new faculty and new modes of response, right? Again, you can see that Mercury came along and just was like a little fairy and woke a lot of people up, right? The appearance of a new faculty. It's just like, whoa, what just happened? And in conjunction with Spica, the star seeds from Spica, these are beautiful, very service to others oriented beings, right? They are pure. They Spica is in the fruit of the grain of wheat in the hand of the maiden, right? In the Virgo constellation, right? So in the constellation, it's in Virgo. In zodiacal astrology, it's in the Libra part of the sky. So you can tell that Mercury at this point, woke up this new faculty in the minds of a lot of people, and us as well. And the Spica star seeds, it's about providing. It's about sustenance. It's about nourishment. It's about the giving of the fruit, because the fruit not only nourishes us, right? We eat the fruit of the plants, but it also has the seed for the next cycle. This is, Spica star seeds are not very, I don't see them very often. They come up, but they're not as prevalent as other types. So, because this is a very special resonance here. So the quincunx, right? You see this green line here, this quincunx to the moon, right? This is our moment of alchemical transmutation, right? This is the square peg in the round hole, so to speak. These things that seemingly don't fit together with the moon in Pisces, which is really bringing us to a subconscious and emotional awareness of what our dharma really is, right? We have to be aware of and accept our own limitations in order to actually fulfill our dharma, which is a very, can be a very frustrating, disempowering place to be, because there's nothing around us in Pisces to attach to, right? It's just us having especially the moon, a direct connection to the collective unconscious, and realizing our role within that is unique to us, but we have to actually accept the whole thing, warts and all, right? Like, we have to understand what our dharma is so that we can fulfill it. And that is providing this weird, like, not fitting, where Mercury is just like, hey, I just woke you up to this whole new faculty in your mind, this whole new inner faculty that is like a third wing. It's like a tripod. It's just like, oh, I found the balance point. I didn't even know this was here. It's like a mutation almost in our mind. But at the same time, we're feeling into like, well, we still have our role to play. We each have our own dharma. So we can't get caught necessarily in the ego aspect of this new thing, but we also don't want to completely release, we don't want to completely lose ourselves in this process without taking this new faculty with us, right? That's part of it. And so this is the transmutational aspect, this quincunx, right? It's the round hole, which is our infinite self, and it's the square, it's the round peg, which is us, our infinite self, our spiritual self, and then, which is very much a moon in Pisces type of thing. And then it's the square hole, right, that we're trying to force it into, which is really the material aspect of us, which is very much connected to Mercury, because it is the realm of our mind, right? Our mind that manifests, or our mind that is the reflection of what we're manifesting, our ability to simultaneously engage with all realm of ideas at the same time. So we want to take this new form with us, right? We want to embody it, this mutation, right? We want to have it be part of our mental faculty. But we also have to be very realistic about the next phase we're going into. And so this is the moment of transmutation with this quincunx. Next we have, let's see here. The next thing we have is Venus is making a quincunx, you can see here, to Chiron, the wounded healer in Aries. And Venus is in her detriment in Scorpio. She's at her least powerful because she wants to be sensitive to the environment. It's all about beauty and tradition and culture and balance and the object of her desire, right? But when you get into Scorpio, it gets very deep. It gets almost obsessive, right? And she is not very powerful here because she has to kind of sink to the bottom in order to really see the truth of things. And that's a very unpleasant, uncomfortable place to go. So she's not very powerful here. And this is where we get lost in our own swamp with Venus and Scorpio. It's also an obsession. Your relationship dynamics can be very obsessive with Venus and Scorpio. It's something, but the divine feminine aspect here in the depth of our relationship, the power of our communion, is also a really powerful position for Venus. If we understand that if we try to be sensitive to it in a material way, it's not going to work out so much for us. So Venus in some ways has to kind of let go of her desire for harmony and balance in a aesthetic and material way and release herself to just seeing the truth of something and feeling it, and finding the balance through that depth of feeling. Now the quincunx, again, with Chiron and Aries, which has been poking at this wound of shame and guilt about just being who we are, and coming to realize that there is a difference between natural law and human law, and within us, and what that means. this quincunx is another opportunity to transmute this energy, because on the one hand, Venus is like, oh, there's this hierarchy, and it's all these elites coming together, and they're kind of presenting a hierarchy of how we all should get along and behave, right? And the quincunx to Chiron is like, but wait a minute, I feel within me that there is actually, an ideal order to things, and has nothing to do with this. So this is a very uncomfortable quincunx as well. And being sensitive to the reality of this hierarchical elite, even if it's provided some sort of framework for us to understand how our power dynamics work. It's important, but it's not easy. Again, so there's that opportunity to square the circle, right? The alchemical transmutation, because it's going to bring up quite a bit in terms of how we feel about ourselves and how we've participated in creating this, right? And this is a great opportunity to transmute this energy into something that can transcend it, rather than getting lost in it. Ooh. Moon comes around and is in a sextile to Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. So what is that sextile? There's that blue line. It is a harmonious connection, but it requires an investment in our energies in order to capitalize on this harmonious connection. And so there is, and I talked about this in the astrology report, because we did cover like the full extent of today, but now that we're kind of on the other side of the weekend, it's even more so obvious to me, at least, that within us, there is, the soul will intervene in order to provide the necessary catharsis, in order to, root out the corruption within ourselves, right? We're going to feel that. And it's Pluto's work that can really be invested into rooting out and purifying ourselves of this corruption. And, that's the thing about Pluto, right? Destruction, the void, and then the new growth, right? And it all is part of the process. And so if you're feeling like you're having a hard time letting go of what Pluto represents on a institutional level, because that's where it's at in Capricorn, realize that you can invest that energy into a very personalized catharsis, purifying all of that corruption out of your own self, right? This connection here is important because it's an opportunity to actually do that purification work on a personal level. And it's coming through the destruction of the institutions and the matrix of reality that Pluto and Capricorn has been working on since 2008. So now it's coming to a very personalized level, which is important because we want this to happen before we get to this full moon point, and we see how we're all each going to differentiate back into our own seed points of uniqueness in our cycle. Mercury comes along and now is in a trine to Jupiter retrograde in Aquarius, so it's still in conjunction with Spica. We have already talked about that. So while it is in a quincunx to the moon, it's in a very strong trine, right? That 120 degree angle. It's a very strong foundational supportive connection, this air trine, where we can apply our knowledge very directly about this mutated ability that's coming through in order to overcome our passions and teach from a place of deep wisdom, right? We can, this new thing comes in online for us, and then we're like, oh, okay, you can let go of all of the inflamed aspect that I assure you that Prince of Wands reversed is going to come out in other people. If we cannot feed into that, then we can teach from that center of the wheel. And Jupiter will support this as long as that's where we're at, because Jupiter is our advocate, and Jupiter represents the good fortune and abundance and optimism and expansion. And Jupiter is retrograde. So all of this is happening on an internalized level. So if we can overcome those passions in order to teach from deep wisdom, I mean, I feel like that this new ability coming online in our mental sphere is supporting that directly. Absolutely directly. That's a really important aspect for today. Then the moon comes into its opposition with the sun for our harvest full moon. That's tonight, right here. And we've talked endlessly about that, so I don't feel like I need to go into it anymore. But what I will say here is that then Mars is in a trine to Rahu, or the North Node. That fire at the center of us, right? We have Mars is in this position of like we're all kind of like uniting with each other around this fire, and it's a fire of common dedication. And with Vesta moving into Scorpio today, which is kind of like it's the tour bus to hell. And I say that because we're all in this together. Where we go one, we go all, and we are definitely going into the depth of the power of our relationships together, to see it together, right? And this, in fact, is Vesta is the fire, right? That we're all kind of around. And Mars in this position of Libra at its detriment, right? It's not at its power in Libra because it's in the sign opposite of its home. But still, there is a sense of diplomacy and a way that Mars can utilize that masculine warrior fire to build that fire, to be that fire, and for all of us to take our ego and to be willing to apply it to this fire of common dedication that represents where we're all going, right? And so we can apply our ego consciousness, our warrior spirit, and that divine masculine within us that wants to go outwards and has the momentum of the fire behind it. We can use that and apply that right now, not only to this center, this fire at the center of all of us, but also it's gaining a lot of traction and support with where we are headed on a soul level. There's a certain amount of nostalgia now that the nodes have shifted into the next degree that is like almost a nostalgia for a much more natural and feeling-based set of values, right? It's less about the mind in this moment and more about what does it feel like to be balanced. And I think that if we can have Mars, if we can really harness Mars in this way and direct that energy towards finding the balance within relationships, I think we're going to get a lot out of this trine. You don't even have to do anything. It's an air trine, and you don't have to invest anything. There's not any friction. It's just a beautiful support system between where we're going on a soul level and this individualized Aries ruled Mars character that really pushes us all forward, but it's really pushing us into the center, right? All of us, we're all surrounding this center point, which is the fire that holds us all together, right? And we're going to need it going into the realm of Vesta in Scorpio, that's for sure. And then our moon moves, after the full moon, moves into Aries, and it's immediately going to quincunx Vesta, who it is at the first 0 degree of Scorpio. And so we're each going to have, this is where the tempers can flare. And this is where that Prince of Wands can be really inverted if we are not mindful of what's going on. And this is also where we can each feel the beginning of ourselves again, this renewal on a subjective level, especially within us and our subconscious. This is really important. But the quincunx again is that we're all going together, and that is part of the fire that's holding us all together, is that we are all going together. And again, there's the quincunx of the round hole, or the round peg and the square hole. How do we make them fit? Well, we transmute these things. And so while we are feeling individually and personally this new emergence from the infinite potential of the collective unconscious, right, which was Pisces, and we saw it fully with the full moon. Now it's moved into Aries, and we're like, yes, I see where, this new potential rising within me on my intuitive and emotional level. Remember that it's there. it's there because we're all going into the depths together, right? We're all going into the depths together. So we can harness that Prince of Wands in a way that is turning that hot storm of action and that really impulsive energy towards this in a really good way, right? In a way that it can be utilized appropriately. But what I see though, and what I feel is that it will be inverted for a lot of people, and it'll be a restless, destructive energy. And it's our job to transmute that fire as we go into the depths of what we create together and what that actually feels like. So, my friends, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Do not forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Also, if you hit the notification bell, then you will know when I go live, because it's been a little varied lately just because of my personal life and trying to navigate different things in that sphere with trying to stay on task with the broadcast. So, and when you actually interact with the content, it does influence the algorithm and helps the message spread to a wider audience. So thank you in advance for doing that. If you are interested in a reading or energetic support for your process, you can book a reading through catalystenergies.net. I am going to offer another flash sale, lunar transit reading, and a bundle with 30 minutes of energy work. I'll be making a flyer for that today. So if you book between now and the new moon, you will be able to get that discounted rate. Otherwise, you can book any other types of packages or types of readings through my website or energy work sessions as well. And you can find Catalyst Energies on Telegram, on Facebook, and be able to stay in touch that way. So thank you guys so much. I truly appreciate every one of you. I truly mean that. I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow.